Again with the newsreader setup. In today's top stories, scientists try to isolate the gene that causes men to stop giving a shit about modern fashion and new music by age 40. Birds are dinosaurs, humans are monkeys, and kobolds are dragons. Okay, so I'm way late to the party on this whole Dragon Week thing earlier this year, but I was surprised nobody saw fit to make mention of these little guys. D&D kobolds were created from the blood of dragons. Their ancestors are dragons. They are descended of dragons. By definition, they are dragons. With or without magic, you can't outgrow your ancestry. It's common enough knowledge now that birds are dinosaurs, meaning dino nuggets are made of real dinosaurs. It's semantically argued against calling us monkeys, with academics arguing humans are apes, not monkeys. But when pushed, they have to admit the immediate ancestor of apes was in fact a monkey, ergo, we are monkeys. Cladistic taxonomy. It works. By the 2024 rules, kobolds are now considered draconic. One moment, please. I don't want to have to talk over my air conditioner. So dragons are now considered, or kobolds are now considered dragons. Okay, in 5e they were still listed as humanoids. So that's where I'm going. Let's go back to the creation stories for kobolds. There's two canon stories in D&D lore. First, the Forgotten Realms. According to Ed Greenwood and Brian James' book, The Grand History of the Realms, quote, this long one, "It is told that when Io first created the true dragons, they were originally immortal gods, less powerful than Io, but much like him. To make each one of his creations distinct, Io gave each a different aspect of his personality. These divine dragons rarely got along, pursuing only one goal in common, the acquisition of material wealth. The true dragons quickly realized they lacked the power to manipulate creation in all the ways necessary to accomplish their goals, and they petitioned Io for aid. Io, being an impartial god, would not play favorites with his creations, and gave each dragon the same choice. He taught them how to create life by giving up a piece of themselves, but warned them that in doing so they would permanently be rendered mortal and eventually die. The life they created, however, would serve their desires. Without fail, perhaps not yet wise enough to appreciate their divine existence, the dragons accepted the knowledge Io offered and departed to the world below. They took up residence in widely separate lands. There, the true dragons did as Io instructed, each severing a single limb. Not only did the limb start growing back immediately, more of this, but the severed part also grew into an adult dragon. The original true dragons thereby gained mates. Furthermore, wherever the dragon's blood had spilled, little creatures began to emerge up out of the ground, with alert crimson eyes, already looking up to their creators for guidance. Thus, kobolds were born, witnesses to the moment during which the immortality of the true dragons slipped away. Now, when Io gave the secret of creation to the two dragons, true dragons, the first dragon to put that ritual into practice was Kasenjak, a green dragon. The first kobold to take form out of her blood was Kurtlemak. From the beginning, Kurtlemak was much larger than any of his kin, For this reason, Case and Jack always commanded her kobolds through Kurtlemak. As a result, the towering kobold naturally ascended to a position of leadership. When Case and Jack told the kobolds to mine for precious metals, Kurtlemak invented a pickaxe. When Case and Jack told the kobolds to tile her lair with gold, Kurtlemak minted the first draconic coin. When Case and Jack... Losing my place here. When Case and Jack told the kobolds to mine precious stones, Kurtlemak taught himself sorcery and learned how to divine where minerals were located. When Case and Jack's lair was finally completed, laden with platinum, filled with gold, and gleaming with gemstones, she had become the wealthiest true dragon in creation. Another page. Without further need for mortal servants, she released the kobolds from their duties to embrace their own destiny. In emulation of his former mistress, Kurtlemak immediately began mining a lair of his own. Although he never asked for any help in this endeavor, he nonetheless received it, assisted by every kobold he had worked beside for the past several decades. End quote. Yeah, they were created from the blood of dragons, so they are dragons. The other D&D canon origin story for kobolds is from Dragon Magazine, issue 332, in the article, where'd my mouse go? The Ecology of the Kobold. Go. Quote, shortly after the Queen of Dragons laid her first clutch of eggs, an army of thieves invaded her lair. Enraged by the intrusion, Tiamat sprung from her mountainous nest of gold and gemstones to crush the interlopers. Her merciless teeth and claws tore through scores of intruders, while her terrible breath weapons destroyed hundreds at a time. The attackers hurled countless swords, spears, and arrows against the chromatic dragon. Most of the weapons shattered harmlessly against her formidable hide. But as the battle wore on, those few that hit their mark began to take their toll on the mighty goddess. Amid the chaos of the frenzied attack, the swiftest of the bandits snatched up fistfuls of treasure and attempted to flee. The boldest of these struggled under the burden of even the smallest of Tiamat's magnificent eggs. Upon noticing the violation of her nest, Tiamat let forth a thunderous roar that brought down the ceiling of her lair and its connecting tunnels, crushing the attackers and trapping the escaping thieves. Weakened by innumerable wounds, Tiamat crawled through the rubble of her lair and collapsed upon her nest. Needing time to recover from her injuries and unable to adequately protect her incubating brood, Tiamat used the last of her strength to cause the first of her precious eggs to hatch early. Punching his way out of the still hardening shell with a stinger-tipped tail like that of his mother, Kurtlemak entered the world. Scrolling again. Infused with a fraction of Tiamat's power, Kurtlemak understood his situation and immediately set upon clearing the falling rock from his mother's lair. As he worked, he concocted a way to single-handedly defend the entire cavern from further intrusion. Collecting the weapons strewn about the lair, Kurtlemak constructed hundreds of devious traps to riddle the floors, walls, and ceilings of the vast chamber. Satisfied with the impenetrable perimeter of deadly mechanisms and pitfalls forming around her nest, Tiamat charged Kurtlemak with reopening the tunnels connecting her lair to the plains, and then fell into a deep slumber. In order to foil further intrusions, Kurtlemak began carving a twisting maze-like network of passages, unfathomable to any but himself. After cutting through miles and miles of rubble, earth, and stone, Kurtlemak eventually came across a niche filled with a small portion of his mother's stolen treasure. As he collected the gold and gems that had become fused into the living rock, intending to return them to Tiamat's lair, he also discovered one of her pilfered eggs. Knowing that the egg had been away from the nest for too long, and deciding that his immense task would be easier with help, Kurtlemak caused the egg to hatch. creating miniature incarnations of himself. Thus the first kobold race was born. Working alongside their creator, the kobolds quickly learned the art of mining through the earth and soon had discovered other caches of treasure and wayward eggs. Which Kurtlemak also caused to hatch, further proliferating the kobold race. Kurtlemak also showed his people how to construct wily traps and various defenses in order to secure the newly carved tunnels as creatures began to discover and explore the passageways. Kurtlemak taught the kobolds the art of ambushing enemies and the wisdom of entering battle only with the advantage of superior number. As the kobolds grew in number, they continued digging an ever-expanding network of tunnels, eventually reaching every corner of the material plane, where they established layers of their own and began to flourish. End quote. Whichever one of these origins you decide to be canon to your world, mainly depending on whether the game takes place in the Forgotten Realms or in other D&D setting, the result is the same. In the realms, kobolds are the side effect offspring of dragons giving up their immortality. They are created from the blood of dragons, so they are dragons. In the other version, they were hatched from the eggs of a dragon, so they are dragons. Not only that, they were hatched from Tiamat's first clutch of eggs, and hatched early, making them the first mortal chromatic dragons. They were there before any of the other ones were. Again, they are dragons. They're just little dragons. So, how dangerous do you think one of these little dragons could be as a player character? In 5e specifically. How do we put more big dragon into the little dragon? I thought about starting with the Dragon Rock Kobold, but that would have to be converted to 3.5, and I want to stick to 5e rules as written. Starting with the standard Kobold, from Volo's Guide, or the Volo's Guide Errata, or Tasha's Cauldron, or Morton Canaans. Any of them work. But you have the option to take an Erd Kobold if you wanted to fly right away. Let's apply the half-dragon template to our Kobold. This works for a beast, humanoid, giant, or monstrosity. In 5e, kobolds are considered humanoid. Like I said, in 2024 rules, they made them dragons. Good. But you can't boost them up like that now. You get draconic language, but we've already got that. You get blind sight for a 10-foot radius on top of the 60-foot or dark vision you already have. You get a damage resistance depending on what kind of dragon is in your ancestry. Black and copper get acid, blue and bronze get lightning, brass, gold, and red get fire, green gets poison, and silver or white gets cold. Last thing, you get a breath weapon, matching your ancestor. What could be more dragon than having a breath weapon, breathing fire? Let's pick your class, and we'll stick with the theme. Go for a sorcerer, obviously. Draconic bloodline sorcerer. This will put more dragon into your dragon. You get draconic ancestry at level 1, and double your proficiency bonus on charisma checks interacting with dragons. Draconic resilience gives you +1 hit points per level, and a base armor class of 13 plus dex. As well, your scales change in color to your dragon ancestor. At level 6, you get Sorcerer's Origin, so you can add your charisma modifier to the damage roll of a spell of the damage type that matches your dragon ancestor. It also gives you damage resistance to that type, but you already had that from being half-dragon. At 14th level, you get Light Divine Soul, and you grow wings. They're permanent. You get a permanent fly speed. If you started with an Erd, you've already been flying all along, but maybe this one makes you fly faster. At level 18, you get Draconic Presence. So your roar, you spend 5 sorcery points, concentration, and 1 action to create a 60-foot aura a 60-foot radius aura of fear or awe for 1 minute. Anybody in that aura makes a save, and if they fail, they're either charmed by or frightened of you. That's on top of all the usual sorcerer stuff like meta magic. I don't play sorcerers that often, so I don't know all of it. How much dragon did we fit inside the kobold? We got the color, the damage type, the resistance, the wings, the breath weapon, spellcasting, language, the presence, and we fit it all inside a 2 to 3 foot tall package. 40 pounds. I think that'll do it for today. Like, share, comment, and subscribe if you like what you see, if you want to see more. Give me some ideas for more videos, more topics, and well, talk to you next time.